Hello! It is time for our book study, Rise of the False Gods. Tonight is, I think it's group meeting 30 and but wait, there's more. For quite a while we've been talking about sin, and more sin. How could there be more? We're going to find out. And I do invite you, if this is the first time you've watched one of my videos on Rise of the False God, and type in Alicia Leslie, Rise of the False Gods. It will take you to the folder that has the different gatherings in it. So you can join on in. And I'm so glad to be back. It seems like a long time, but I have to tell you, I really needed to have some time to recover from our very busy and wonderful weekend at the campground. It was terrific. We got 2 more weekends left, and then we're going to be off for the winter. Of course, I can't go anywhere. Or should I say I won't go anywhere, because frankly, I prefer to follow the school of put your mask on, keep your distance, and let's beat the bug. Let's beat the bug together, okay? As always, I comments and your questions. If I don't see your question come up, I will certainly answer it as soon as I read it, so know that I will catch up on it. And do go to YouTube and subscribe, because that way you'll make sure you don't miss a thing. So welcome. All right, and tonight we are starting a little bit down the page, about a third of the way down the page, on page 57 in the book. And if you're on Kindle, it doesn't quite match up, but you can find it pretty easy. So, I shall read, starting at page 57, in what I believe was Jesus' effort to clarify the commandments, he gave 2 more. 2 more? Haven't we had enough? 2 more. The first, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That comes from Luke 10:27. And then the second, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. But there's more, and that is called the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule is found in just about every major religion, and it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is a part of worldwide spiritual practice. You know, in school we studied world religions when I was in seminary, and it was so helpful because I learned how much the religions have in common. And when we go to look at the metaphysical principle of these 3 that we have read, if we can step back from the guy in the sky thinking and open our hearts to seeing God as not only principle but personal as well, but beyond the limitation of the way that humankind chooses to see him. See, instead of us working on ourselves to become the image and likeness of God, we tend to try to make God into our image and likeness with our emotions, our way of thinking, and our way of feeling. And that is really not the truth about God. Excuse me, God is greater. So, what's common in all these? What's common is love and God and each other, or one another, however you want to look at it. So what it's pointing out is that we love God and we love each other, and a very, very, very important part, as we love ourselves. As we love ourselves. How do you love yourself? Do you love yourself unconditionally? Or do you love yourself conditionally? Do you find yourself being hard on yourself? Maybe saying you're not strong enough, rich enough, pretty enough, whatever, capable enough. It's so unfortunate, because we are capable of so much, and we tend to discredit ourselves, and we tend to very often put others before ourselves. Now, yes, we want to be a part of a whole, not thinking that we are God, but we are a child of God. And too often we do neglect ourselves. We don't want to love ourselves more than God. We don't even want to love ourselves more than each other, because love is unlimited and unconditional. So we want to know we are all one. And that's what we're called to do. Love each other. The adhering to these teachings can eliminate the need for any others. So look at it this way. Let's go back to the Big Ten, the Ten Commandments. If we truly follow, love God, love each other, love yourself, okay, we would not steal from another. We would not lie about each other. We would not kill each other. We would not contaminate our relationships with each other. We would, you see, it all comes down to the same thing. If we just love and love each other, and that is what practical spirituality is. It just makes sense. If we truly love each other, then there would not be war. We would not want other people's stuff. We would want to even share what we have. You know, in Unity, we look at the metaphysical principles of the Bible rather than the literal. And sometimes I look at the literal, and without denying, my Bible teacher, Reverend Frank Judici, used to say, it said it in the Bible, something happened, that there was some sort of literal thing behind it. But you know, sometimes when I look at the stories and I stand back far enough to get a good look at them and compare them to these guidelines, these commandments that we were given, I see that if we applied the principles, we wouldn't have been in that position. Now, here's where I kind of veer off from traditional Bible study. I thought about the people being guided to the promised land, the land that flows with milk and honey, and it's so wonderful. And the people got it, that they were to go in and take the land meant to have a holy war. And what holy war meant was everybody dies. You just clean them out and you move in. And I always wondered to myself, I wonder if there was any human thought got mixed in with that, because what if they showed up instead of saying, good land, wonderful things, God gave that to me, you got to go. You don't just have to go, you got to be dead. All right. You know, worth thinking about, isn't it? Applying these commandments. I wanted to look at it another way, because when we go to change, so this is a metaphysical interpretation of that piece, when we go to change and to change the way we live and to have these, I notice I'm keeping on freezing in my video. I don't know what it's like for you. I apologize. I'm thinking I disappear. You can message me. I'm not getting any comments, so I'm wondering if I'm still even active. I'm going to hope for the best and continue. Maybe there was a plane going over and I lost my contact. All right. Hate to have to do this over. Oh. All right. So anyway, the fact is that if you want to have change in your life, you have to eliminate everything that is not like it. Okay? So that's the metaphysical message of the story of taking the promised land. Okay. Oh, yes, I am here now. Thank you very much. It's good to know. I wondered if I disappeared there, Cheryl. Okay, so right now, I listen to people every day that talk about how tired they are, how fatigued they are, how depressed they are. And that makes sense because we are going through great challenges with the COVID virus, with the elections, with a challenge about what is true, what is not true, finding truth instead of being divided, finding ourselves needing to come together. So we're in a challenging place, but here's the thing. We're fearful for what's going to happen on November 3rd. We're a little nervous about what's going to happen in December, rest of November, December, January, until the whole election process, which has been very divisive and very painful and very discouraging. But if those are all like the people that are occupying our thought process, remember Charles Fillmore said that in our mind we had thought people, that each thought was like a different entity and we have to work with that. So if we've got all these negative thoughts and these fearful thoughts about what's coming up, that's kind of atheistic, because it means that we have more faith in the circumstances than in God's ability to change them. Wow. So if we want to have the change we want, we got to get rid of all the negative thoughts. Yes, they're there. Yes, we still have to stay true to who we are and what we believe, speak our truth with love, and move forward in faith. And that's that biggest thing. That is what we have to overcome to get to our promised land of peace and love and plenty. And how do we do it? Love God, love each other, love ourselves. You know, when we run ourselves ragged, we're not loving ourselves. When we don't feed our bodies healthy food, we don't love ourselves. When we don't get enough sleep and enough fun, and when we don't laugh enough, we don't love ourselves. So this is very important, what might seem to someone else like a frivolous teaching. Okay, I'm carrying on the next to the last paragraph. To sin against another is to sin against ourselves. It's like the old cliche, another one of my mom's favorite things to say, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. A perfect example is ecology. We live on an interdependent biosphere. When we poison the air or water, we eventually poison ourselves. If we kill bees, there will be no pollination and we will experience famine. Now, there's a few bees I'd like to kill, I'll tell you that, but like the ones that bit me this past summer, that was very painful experience. But when I'm saying kill bees, I'm talking about, go down with the fogger planes and just fog everything there is. We have to understand we need our bees. And I give thanks to, let me see if I can think of his name for a minute. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman took a whole bunch of his land, and what's he doing? He's raising bees. And we can thank Morgan Freeman for helping to pollinate and get us food and honey and all kinds of things we want. We all must work together on the planet. Love God, love one another, and that includes creation and its creatures in a healthy way. The primary doctrine of false gods is that we are separate and that the individual self or the ego is more important. And what the ego wants is more important than anything else. And you can believe that if you want, and you can live that way if you want, but you will not find long-term satisfaction in your life. In every major religion, there is a version of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In the doctrine of the false gods, the golden rule is the one with the gold rules. And instead of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, it is do unto others before they do unto you. See, it's all about separation, when the truth of our being is oneness. Anything that reinforces separation, excuse me, or the us versus them or me versus you, is contrary to the truth of our being that we are all one. It does not mean we never disagree. Good heavens, how boring would that be? But we have to learn to disagree graciously and kindly, and sometimes agree to disagree. That's what loving is. And that's what's so sad about our current political climate. It's like you have to be this or that. And you can't even having discussions is not possible, because rather than being discussions that work on what do we agree on, they usually wind up being arguments about what we disagree on. When we are compelled to be better than or best, we usually find that we are in trouble, because we're all best. All we have to each do is do our best to be our personal best every day. To live in a consciousness of separation and me versus you, us versus them, is really the negating the divine idea of oneness and the divine idea of a higher power, which is God. Through the wiles of the false gods, they first instill the thought there is no higher being. And then when there's a disaster, we blame God or wonder where he is when we need him. Where is God? God, how could you let this happen? And God says, have you learned nothing since you got there? I sent you there to learn. If you want to live in paradise, you got to learn how to maintain it. Because that's what we thought we were smarter than God. If you look at the Adam and Eve allegory, we thought we were smarter than God, so we wound up getting booted out of paradise. Don't try to think you're smarter than God. But the greatest, the deadliest sin of all is the sin of separation. Not living the truth that we are all one. We are one with God, one with each other, one with all creation, one with the earth. Failure to live this truth will lead to certain hell. Now, am I talking about a geographical location called hell? No, I'm talking about a state of consciousness. Is hell eternal? It depends. Is our consciousness going to change? We don't change our consciousness, the hell that we live in will not change. We create our heaven or hell. Or as one of my favorite Unity songs goes, we make our own world wherever we are. Our happiness is of our own making. Unhappy? What are you doing to make yourself happy? It's an unfortunate fact that this sin of separation is so common today through racism, segregation, prejudice, and politics. We can see the error of separation when we think about Adam and Eve. As I said, they decided they were separate from God, that they were equal to God, even though they didn't do anything to achieve that, to acknowledge that, to glean that. We look at the sense of separation between Cain and Abel. It always keep looking at the separation of the people that were occupying the promised land and the people who wanted to come in and take it. Here's where it gets tricky. Because while we can change ourselves, how can we change others? Can we change others? If you've ever flown on a plane, and this is what you're really going to need, so whatever you're doing, really pay attention right now. If you've flown, and I haven't flown in a long time because of this doggone bug, beat the bug, when you fly, if you are actually paying attention to the flight attendant, who is telling you if the oxygen masks drop down and you have a child, put your own mask on first before you put the mask on the child. Well, as a mother, the natural instinct is to put the mask on the child first. But if you pass out, that's not going to help anything, right? So you put your mask on, you get your oxygen so you can get the mask on your child so they can get their oxygen. If we look at the whole rest of the folks who may not be where we are spiritually, and we are not where other people are spiritually along our path to full potential, we must stay grounded. We must maintain our prayer life, continue to study spiritual principle, living in principle, integrate the principles that you're learning in the book and in our group, integrate those into your life. And as it gets more challenging, which it is very likely to do, you will have your oxygen mask on. You will be able to breathe when others are gasping for breath, okay? So you will be the one they will be able to come to and say, how come you're so calm? How come your faith is so strong? How come you can say God's in charge? How come you're enjoying your life, okay? It's not easy. It's not easy. It takes a lot when we are gut punched every day by the news. It takes a lot to say, despite what I'm seeing, despite what I'm hearing, God is in charge. And if it gets worse, it's about our spiritual growth. It's not about God punishing us. It's about us learning to live spiritual principles as a whole. Start with yourself. Put your mask on. Pay attention. You're never too broke to pay attention. Okay. So whether it's COVID or politics or family challenges or whatever else, take care of yourself. Stay strong, continue to learn, and get spiritually grounded every day. Spend time every day getting grounded. Hang out with people who think the way you do. Turn the TV off if you have to. I will not get into political discussions with anybody who is, or religious discussions with anybody who's got a chip on their shoulder and wants to try to change my mind or argue. I am not trying to convert anybody. If you hear anything and what I have to say and it moves your soul and you say, God, that's right, and you want to follow along with that, that's great. If you hear something I say and you say, I don't know about that, that's fine. Don't. Just keep listening. Maybe you'll hear something next that you'll like. Okay. Just because there's no actual fire and brimstone with a horned devil poking us with a pitchfork doesn't mean we are free and clear. The consequences of our individual and collective thoughts, feelings, and actions can bring hellish results. Well, Cheryl says you can only change someone if they are willing to change. I think that, yeah, that sounds good, but we can't change anybody. We can, the way I see it, you can be right. The way I see it, we can't change anybody. They have to be willing to change, and they are the ones that will make the change. We can support them in change. We absolutely can. We can share our truth where they may hear something. But if I had a nickel for every time that I preach something and preach something and preach something over and over to the same, group of people, and someone will come up to me and say, I heard this preacher the other day and he said blah, blah, blah. And it was like he'd never heard it before when I said it 800 times. Sometimes they have to be open to change, open to hear what you have to say. And very often, and this is, we don't always want to think about this, the pain has to get bad enough to want to change. That's why, as we head into the coming months, we would be wise to breathe deeply and to know that there is every possibility we are going to go through great challenge. We are going to go through great challenge because we are going to go through great growth. You are listening now. You have the opportunity to be a part of that, a positive part of positive change. Okay. Under the influence of false gods that lead us to believe we have absolute freedom, we think we are the exception to the rule. The rule is spiritual principle, and there are no exceptions. Spiritual principle is absolute, eternal, and unchanging. We reap what we sow. Welcome to hell. Is hell eternal damnation, you ask? It is as eternal as we let it be. Until we surrender, we surrender our self-centered, carnal, animal nature to something higher, the spark of divinity within. That's what that's what we surrender to. We surrender our lower nature to a higher good, and it always comes out good. We may be human beings, but we are spiritual beings having that human being experience. And all we need to do is spiritualize the human part. It's simple, but it's not easy. Ego from the lower quadrants, remember the lower quadrants? Human thought and human emotion. Ego is an acronym E. Edging, G. God, O. Out. When our ego, our lower self, our personality, as opposed to the principle of who we really are, we edge God out of our lives. There's no room for thoughts of God, church, principles, only self when we edge God out. Then when something evil befalls us, we demand to know, where was God in this? Well, God was in the midst of it. As principle, working even through the pain, even through what you have to grow through to bring you up higher. Ted Perry in 1972 said, by the way, Chief Seattle was credited with this, but it wasn't him who said it. It was Ted Perry. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. Man does not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand of it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. I hope you enjoyed that today, and you got some good food for thought, and I hope that you will join me tomorrow when we are doing a juicy one: money, sex, and power. Woohoo! I hope I'll see you tomorrow as we look at money, sex, and power. Until then, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you.